Welcome in to the In the Money podcast for Breeders' Cup Friday out at Santa Anita. Tom Leach along with Goodman, Keeneland's simulcasting. Take a look at the 4 Breeders' Cup races on the Friday card that make up a $1.5 million pick 4. Also, there's a chance through Keeneland Select to go for 15,000 points by hitting that pick 4. So good luck with that. And, Jim, we will start it out with the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Who do you like?
Yeah, nothing like starting out with a wide open race. I like a lot of horses in here, and I don't like them well enough to narrow them down. Kind of took a shot here with Lancaster Bomber for Aidan O'Brien. I'm going to use the European horses because I think, although there was an article this morning that on DRF that said the Europeans weren't that tough in this race, even though they have done well in this race. So Lancaster Bomber is a very lukewarm choice, just because he's been keeping company with Grade 1 in Ireland and Great Britain, and finished second last out. Only won one race, but finished second at Grade 1 stakes there behind Churchill. He ran behind Churchill the last 3 races. I would imagine if Churchill were here, he would be 1-5 in this field. So I think I'm going to take Lancaster Bomber, but I'm also going to use a lot more in here. I'm going to go 6 deep in the pick 4. With Keep Quiet is probably my sleeper pick here. I think he really got better. Won the Bourbon at 4-1. I don't know how much he beat in the Bourbon. That's what worries me. I don't want to talk bad about one of our races, but it wasn't really strong. But he looked good. He was pulling away at the end. I like that effort for Giroux and Mark Cassie. Cassie could have a big Breeders' Cup, I think. Good Samaritan, the 11, is the deserving favorite off that race at Woodbine, the Summer Stakes, Grade 2. And I think he is going to be the morning line favorite with a 94 buyer, easily the best buyer figure in the field, and that's a really good number for a 2-year-old. Also going to use the 8-horse Intelligence Cross for Aidan O'Brien, the other Aidan O'Brien horse. I'm going to use Rodani, shipping over from Europe, and I'm going to use Oscar Performance, the 13, for Brian Lynch off that easy Pilgrim win on a yielding turf course at Belmont. It will not get a yielding turf course at Santa Anita, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 8, 11, 12, 13, using all 3 Euros and the logical horses that are the American horses.
I like Good Samaritan a lot in here. Not wild about the 11 post position. So that's going a mile. That's a pretty short run to the first turn. This horse, I think, may come from off of it, so that maybe helps. If it's just going to, it's going to be one of those things. If circumstances work out and he, slides down in there and he's only 3 or 4 wide, it's great. And if he could also be 10 wide, and then you'd feel really bad. So I'm just going to go with him because I think he's the best horse and take my stand with him. Love the buyer in that last race, and then a really sharp local workout. Watch the work and then listen to some of the analysts talking about it, and apparently one of the better works of Breeders' Cup week. So I'm going to take Good Samaritan to be good enough to overcome the post, and pretty much all the ones, a lot of the ones you mentioned, all the 3 Euros, the 8, the 1, and the 12, I'll use with him in exactas. Big Score intrigues me a little bit. Local horse that I thought ran pretty well. And then Channel Marker is a huge price, but ran pretty well behind Good Samaritan. So if I like Good Samaritan and Channel Marker has a great post out of the 3-hole, I figure I could toss him in there maybe to hit, to get second, but basically, if you use him in tries to hit the board at a big price. But Good Samaritan's going to be my pick in the Juvenile Turf. Then we go to the Dirt Mile, and I would like to try to find a way to beat the favorite, and I just couldn't beat Dortmund. He hadn't won this year, but he's been running as California Chrome. He's 2 for 2 at a mile, loves Santa Anita, and this is just nowhere near the competition he's been facing. So I'm going to take Dortmund here. The only horse I really think might be good enough to beat him on his best day if he somehow got back to it with his run happy. And you got a speed horse in a race that doesn't have a lot of speed, and Gary Stevens on him. That's a interesting combo that intrigues me a little bit. Vijak, I think's running well. Gun Runner's been very consistent. Point Piper, I think, is a little intriguing at a price just because he's coming second off a layoff and could really improve in this spot. So I would key Dortmund with those others in exactas, and I'll talk about the pick 4 when we get to the end here. But Dortmund's my pretty solid win pick for the Dirt Mile. How about you?
I like Dortmund, but I also like Gunrunner.
You've been on the Gunrunner for a long time.
Yeah, I have, and I haven't made much money on him, but he's run well. He really hasn't run a bad race except for the Haskell, and it was a horrible, sloppy track. Nobody's going to be the exaggerator that day. He got a wide trip. You throw that race out, and in Arrogate, of course, freaked the last time out, or he ran well enough to win the Travers on most days. You just weren't going to beat that horse. So I think Gunrunner wisely took this spot here. He wasn't going to beat California Chrome and Arrogate in the Classic, shortening up to a mile. He hasn't run a mile since his maiden win at Churchill, but he's got positional speed. Giroux fits him well. If Dortmund stumbles somehow, I think Gunrunner could be there to pick up the pieces. But I agree with you, Dortmund is the standout here. I mean, there's no California Chrome in here. There's no American Pharaoh in here. He's run against the best of two generations, and I think that he's by far the classiest horse in here, and is probably a legitimate single if you talk about a pick four. But I think Gunrunner has a shot. I do not like Run Happy. I don't like anything with his training regimen. I think he's not a happy horse. Forgive the pun. Didn't show much at all in the ACAC, and I just don't think he's where he needs to be to win this kind of race away from Keeneland. And Dortmund has the home court advantage. I like Dortmund quite a bit here. Tom Marcuse, the 8 for Kerry McLaughlin, intrigues me a little bit. Ran behind Anchor Down last out and ran a really good race behind AP Indian in the 4-go at 7 furlongs at Saratoga. So I think at a price, you might look at him with Mike Smith up. So that's not a bad shot to take either. Dortmund's my pick over Gunrunner, Tom Marcuse. And I would throw Point Piper in there as well, but I am going to bet against Run Happy.
8th race is the Juvenile Fillies Turf, and this is for the 2-year-old girls going a mile on the turf course. Full field of 14. How do you see this one?
Can I do all? This one, if it weren't for the post position, I really like La Coronel. She was as impressive as anybody we saw at Keeneland in winning the Jessamine by 4 1/4. Mark Cassie loves her. I think that if she wasn't in the 14 hole, I'd like her a lot. Since she is in the 14 hole, I still like her. She's got to work out a trip from out there and got to have a lot of luck. But I still think she's a good one to take on top, but certainly not anybody single to pick four. I think Lull, the 2-horse who ran behind her here in the Jessamine, even though she lost by 4 1/4, she was on the lead, and La Coronel just ran her down, but she ran well to finish second. Big change in post positions. La Coronel had the 1 hole that day and just had a nice trip up the rail. Lull could gain 4 lengths. That's how much she got beat by the post position difference. Aiden O'Brien with Hydrangea. Spainberg is intriguing. I'm not sure Kathy Ritvo how she wound up with this horse. She doesn't train many horses anymore, but she worked here at Keeneland last week and shipped over from Great Britain and took a stop at Keeneland to work and I guess went through the quarantine. First Lasix, I think she's interesting. Victory to Victory, the Cassie other horse in here that Le Peru picks up the mount because Giroux can't ride both of them. Intricately, the Joseph O'Brien horse from overseas. And I can go on, but I think I'll stop there. I'm going to use that many in the pick four. La Coronel is my pick, but the 14 hole doesn't help me any.
I'm with you on all of that. If La Coronel was in the inside half of the field, I'd single her. From out there, I can't go quite as strong, but she has just been so good since they put her on the turf that I'm just going to say she is the best, and being the best can be good enough to overcome the post. 6 Perfections 1 year out there won the mile from the 13 hole because she was the best. Half bridled, I think it was, won from the 14 hole in the juvenile dirt race. So if you're the best, you can do it, but it sure ain't easy. So La Coronel's my pick. I think Lull's going to be an overlay in here. I think you make a great point there. And shortening up to a mile, I think, even enhances the chances for that one. Victory to Victory. Rimska in the second start in the States in Chad Brown's barn, I think could be intriguing. Picks up Lasix for this start. And then the 3 Euros, the 13, the 1, and the 7 Roly Poly, Hydrangea, and Intricately. I could see all of those. So I will key La Coronel in exactas and use as many of those as the budget will allow in boxes, keying off La Coronel. And then the Breeders' Cup Distaff wraps up the Friday card as far as Breeders' Cup races. And I ended up going to Stellar Wind here over Songbird. Really tough call, but Stellar Wind's at 110 Buyers, 10 points higher than Songbird's ever run. Now, Songbird has been winning so easy that, this was kind of happened with Zenyatta, and when she had to run faster, she did, and Songbird very well could. But she's down in the inside. Stellar Wind can stalk and pounce, and she's never been better. So I'm going to take Stellar Wind over Songbird. I'm a Chatterbox, I think, is worth a look. The Spinster's historically been a great prep for the Distaff. I'm a Chatterbox is as good as she's ever been. She was so impressive in the win here at Keeneland. I just don't know if she's good enough, but I will use her in a box with Stellar Wind as well. And I'm going to probably leave Beholder out to save some money on the pick 4 ticket, but I'm going to say Stellar Wind and Songbird are just a little better than Beholder. How about you?
Yeah, nice little last race on the card when you're tossing a horse that's 17 for 25 with $5 million in earnings.
How about that?
Yeah, that's a lot of guts. I kind of agree with you, but the thing that you said about Zenyatta, I keep coming back to that with Songbird. Now, look at every one of her races. She hasn't been tested. I mean, we said she was going to be tested by Karina Mia and Catherine Sophia. I think she's better than what she's run because she's won by 3 3/4 is the closest race she's had. She hadn't had to run a 108 Buyer, but I think she's certainly capable of doing that. 3-year-old against older, I hate to take her, but I'm not going to bet against her. She's 11 for 11, and I would really love to see her win. I'm going to take her over the two that you talked about. Stellar Wind is the second choice because she's better than Beholder is right now. She's proven that in 2 different races that were run in 2 different styles, and Beholder ran well, but Stellar Wind's just a little bit better. I would use Beholder. Obviously, she could win the race. It wouldn't be a shock. And I'm a Chatterbox. I think can get in the money. She was much the best in the Spinster, and she won by 7. She only ran a 100 Buyer, but she could have run much better that day. She didn't have to. So I think these fillies, this is a great race. And not even mention Carolina, who really almost beat Cavorting last time out, finished in front of Forever Unbridled, and there's nothing wrong with Carolina. So there's a lot of quality in this 8-horse field. Songbird is my pick. Stellar Wind or Beholder would not shock me. I'm a Chatterbox would shock me, but I'm going to put her in there just in case she does run big.
All right, let's talk about pick 4s. Here's what I did for mine, and I'm going to suggest actually 2 tickets. 2 50-cent tickets, and what I'm going to take a position that Good Samaritan and La Coronel are horses I might single if they were drawn better, but they're not. So I'm going to take the position that one of them is going to win, and I'm going to take 2 50-cent pick 4 tickets. And if they would both happen to win, then I'll have it twice. So with one of them, I'm going to single Good Samaritan, then take Dortmund, Gun Runner, and Run Happy. Then I'm going to take La Coronel, Roly Poly, Hydrangea, Intricately, Lull, and Rimska, and then Stellar Wind and Songbird. Then on the other one, I'm going to take 5 horses in the first leg, Good Samaritan, the 3 Euros, and Big Score. Same 3 in the second leg, single La Coronel, and the same 2 in the last leg. So 2 different 50-cent tickets. One of them singling Good Samaritan, one of them singling La Coronel, and get lucky enough both of those win, then I'll have it for $1. How about you?
I took a little different tact. I think that those horses that you like, I agree that they're the best horses in the race, but the outside post positions hurts each of them. So I put together an $84 ticket, going 7 deep in the first leg. Lancaster Bomber, the 1, Keep Quiet, the 2. The 5 Made You Look, which I don't think I mentioned when I first started talking about it, I think that at 12 to 1, you can't leave out a Pletcher horse. The 8 Intelligence Cross, the 11 Good Samaritan, the 12 Rodani, and the 13 Oscar Performance. Going with 2 horses in the second leg, Dortmund and Gun Runner, the 3-9. Then in the Juvenile Fillies turf, I would go 6 deep with the 1 hydrangea, the 2 lull, the 4 Spainberg, the 7 intricately, the 13 roly poly, and the 14 La Coronel, and take a stand in the last with Songbird, the 1, and the 5 horse, who I just
Stellar Wind.
Stellar Wind. I wrote down 2 and I changed it to 5. I wrote down the wrong number. Stellar Wind is a 5, so stick with the 1 and the 5. If you made me pick, I would probably single Dortmund over singling Songbird, because I just think he stands out over that field. So I've got different singles than you got, but it's only because of the post positions. Maybe we ought to put ours together, play a small ticket, and try to hit 3 times.
There you go.
Because you like the 2 races I went deep on, and you went deep on the 2 that I feel strongest about.
So best of luck on your wagers, and we will have another podcast taking a look at the Saturday card, including the Ultra Pick 6. And best of luck on your Breeders' Cup Friday. For Jim Goodman, I'm Tom Leach. That's the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com.